Views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants. The hosts make no claim to be literary experts, and their opinions are exactly that, opinions. All creative works discussed or reviewed are the intellectual property of the creators of said stories and is being used under the fair use doctrine.
Of Swords and Soulmates, a podcast where we read, watch, and discuss romantasy stories. I'm one of your hosts, Mari, and with me I have Kelly.
Hey everyone, it's Kelly. We also have Ashley.
Hey, it's Ashley. We also have Jonathan.
What's good? It's JP. How's everybody doing?
Good. I am better than I was last time we recorded because I was just getting strep last time. So I still have some stuffiness in my voice, but this is a billion times better than I was. I will say, like I posted in the social media stuff, we were mildly affected by Hurricane Helene. So we're recording in a different location. So if this sounds off or different than what you guys are used to hearing, that is why. So please bear with us. Today, we will be discussing A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which obviously I'm excited that we finally did. But before we get into it, we're going to do some news. All right, the first thing I'm going to put on here is I've been following this. I've already pre-ordered this, and I've been following it for a while, and I've had 2 people individually message me about it. So I'm very, very excited and think that I probably will like this. There's a book coming out. It's called Pride and Prejudice in Space.
In space.
In space. It's written by
the
Alexis.
Zombie one.
Yeah, the zombie one is fun. I liked it better. I like the zombie one better as I like the movie better than the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like visually, I thought it was cool. This one is written by Alexis Lampley, who she is, I think, the main artist on Nerd Inky is what it's called. They do like really cool book covers.
The book cover, please?
Is it Nerd Ink? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's like the artist at Nerd Inc. And this is her first book. So like Nerdy Inc. Nerdynk. So I follow Nerdy Inc. And then I saw this book start to come up. So it's going to be released in October. The release date is October 15th. And it's a retelling of the Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice, one of my favorite books, but in space. And the way that the blurb reads, I think it's going to have some of the vibes of the old Dune movie, not the new one, the old one, where it's this like space opera kind of vibe to it. I'm excited. I hope it's good. The cover's really pretty. Cover looks like a 70s sci-fi book to me. It looks like a really pretty illustration. So,
well, and it sounds like it's going to have like a lot of illustration throughout the book, which makes sense. Them being part of a book cover print business.
Yeah,
it's
really
stunning.
Pretty. I believe that they're doing a like special cover for it. If you pre-order it through them, I think it is. There's like an alternate cover where you can do like a reversible cover. I like the cover of the original one better. Yeah, I pre-ordered this back in April. So it's been
Oh, wow.
It's been on my radar for a while. But I kept having other news and stuff for the podcast, but now I'm finally like I need to talk about it because it's about to come out. But yeah, the illustrations in it look really cool. Lots of spacey, like I don't know, it's got a very 70s vibe. It's like pastels in space. Like the cover is like a flowy dress, and it's got this like bubble over her head as like a helmet, and then like this, I don't know, rainbow pastel Lisa Frank looking planet in the background. I'm excited about it. I hope it's good, but we will see. The other thing I was going to say is that I was excited about this too. Fairy Loot, which we've talked about in the past, is releasing a special edition version of Kiki's Delivery Service. Have you guys, I know Kelly and I have watched this and we're fans, but did you guys ever watch the Kiki's Delivery Service?
I have not.
I think you guys would enjoy it. It's Ghibli, Studio Ghibli. So it's animated. It's very sweet. It's a kid's story. I mean, she's a witch, but it's like, she's a witch. Yeah. The way like the spell
wholesome.
shop is. Like it's very much like spell shop. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the book is really good too. I read the book recently. I had watched the movie a few times, so I read the book for the first time this year, just recently. But Fairy Loot is doing a special edition version of Kiki's Delivery Service. It's a hardcover, and it's going to have a cover designed by Josie Smizik. Going to have digitally sprayed edges. It's going to have artwork on the cover, custom end papers. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is outside of their normal like subscription. So even if you don't have a Fairy Loot subscription, you can still get this. It's going to be $31 plus shipping. They're located in the UK, and it would ship in May or June of 2025. But if you want to order it, like early access for the Fairy Loot people who live in the UK, it's going to be on the 17th. Well, actually, for all the Fairy Loot people, like it's 1 p.m. British Standard Time for people who live in the UK, 4 p.m. British Standard Time for Fairy Loot subscribers outside of the UK. And then if they have anything remaining for the rest of us peons that aren't Fairy Loot subscribers, it'll be on October 18th at 1 p.m. British Standard Time for UK customers and 4 p.m. British Standard Time for US and Canadian customers. In the past, I've gotten stuff from them and been able to get it at that last, like, you know, when it's available to everybody else kind of thing. So they do a pretty good job of having enough available for who they think there's going to be interested. They do good quality books. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, I've never heard any complaints about them. I just haven't dabbled yet.
And I would absolutely recommend
One day.
Kiki's Delivery Service. It's a cute, I would say maybe fall vibes, cute little movie to watch around this time of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing that I posted on social media when I first found out about it too, is that Sarah Beth Durst, who wrote The Spell Shop, is doing another book in that world. I don't know if I would call it a prequel or a sequel. The way it's marketed is a standalone book in that world. But it's basically the creator of Kaz. So I think it's going to have a little bit of prequel of how Kaz got created. And then, of course, like her name is Terlu Perna. She, gets turned into that statue as punishment. But apparently it's like, and then she wakes up and then this book happens. So I think it's going to be a little bit before and a little bit after.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kaz's mommy.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be fun. In the little announcement, Sarah Beth Durst said, it's called The Enchanted Greenhouse. Sorry, I didn't say it. The Enchanted Greenhouse is set in the same world as The Spell Shop. It's about Terlu Perna, the librarian who created Kaz and was transformed into a wooden statue as punishment. That should have been the end of her story. Yet one day, Terlu wakes up. ... It's going to be...
Hopefully before it went up in flames.
Maybe
that's what caused her to wake up.
Right.
Maybe the person who imprisoned her was like
dun, dun, or died.
Deaded themselves. And as a result, their magic died with them and she was released from her
curse,
her worldly
So that's going to be
bonds.
released July of 2025. So next summer, we'll have that to look forward to.
So far.
I know. The cover looks really pretty, though. The cover was released. It has that similar feeling as The Spell Shop does. Also, we have, there's a new book coming out by Ruby Dixon. It is Bull Moon Rising. It is a minotaur story. So like a monster romance, female main character and minotaur for the other character. Ruby Dixon who wrote Ice Planet Barbarians. For anyone who's doesn't instantly know that name and associate it with Ice Planet Barbarians. She is the Ice Planet Barbarian creator. So that book comes out October 15th of this year. And if you pre-order it or like the first run of it, there's like a hardcover that's very sparkly and very pretty.
It looks like it's got some really pretty edge paintings as well.
Mm-hmm. It's like a dark blue with like leaves and a moon maybe and stars in like white on it. And then it's got pictures, end papers, like pictures on the inside end papers. It looks like it's like a sparkly, almost pastel rainbow thing on the cover. And then under the cover, it's like a pink with a dark blue image on it. So it has very much of that sweet kind of Lisa Frank kind of vibe to it to me. And that may be just me showing my age, but this feels like the Trapper Keeper covers.
I got to ask you tangentially: Are you a Lisa Frank fan? Or just in general of the artwork?
I like the art. Yeah, I like the artwork growing up. I like the idea of the artwork growing up. I mean, it was always like the expensive stuff. I never actually had any actual Lisa Frank stuff. That was not in our price range. But I remember liking it. I remember coveting it. Let me put it that way.
I was in the same boat, and then a few years ago, I want to say like mid-pandemic, Trapper Keeper released throwbacks. And so I am now, as an adult, because you do adult things with adult money, so I was able to go back and purchase myself that Trapper Keeper. I am like 6 inches from it right now. I never use it, but I'm so glad that I have it. Thank you, nostalgia.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. It makes you happy, you know. But yeah, it looks really good. I have never read anything of Ruby Dixon's other than her Ice Planet Barbarians, which is technically sci-fi. But I know Ruby Dixon has a lot of like fantasy books out there, which I would say by what I'm looking at the synopsis of this Minotaur kind of thing, it looks like it's in the fantasy realm. But I've heard good things about those books too, her fantasy books too. So I'll probably end up reading this. There's a lot of Ruby Dixon books that I want to read, but this one's definitely going on that list. Have you guys read any Minotaur stories before? Anybody?
Not specifically Minotaur, although I think my most recent interaction with a Minotaur, an impactful Minotaur, is in the Netflix show Chaos.
I still haven't seen that.
And that's so tiny. That's a blip.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to watch it.
I think there's a Minotaur in the Percy Jackson series.
I've heard that, yes.
But it's been so long since I've read all of the books that I don't remember. I don't believe I've read a Minotaur in a romance or fantasy setting otherwise.
But wait, I think maybe we have.
We have?
We have.
Say more.
Okay, everybody sitting down?
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
You think the Beast is a Minotaur?
I mean, what is a Minotaur?
No.
Half bull, half dude?
Is a Minotaur fuzzy though?
The Minotaur was
like
the head of a bull in the body of a person. I thought that's what a Minotaur was. I thought that was the physical description, right?
More or less.
Pretty much a beast.
Although, you know what?
That's the beast. The beast got them little tiny horns.
I see it now that you say it. I see it. I can't unsee it now.
You didn't know that was French / Greek mythology. That's what I do.
I mean, I can definitely
childhoods.
see the idea of where that comes from. I will say that in our future as a podcast, we will be reading a Minotaur story.
Is that the Land of Milk and Honey story?
It's the Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Yeah, okay.
So I met some podcasters at DragonCon that we will be doing a collaboration with in the future. Surprise, it's going to be Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Yep, that's Minotaur.
It's two of them. I only met Sarah. So the podcast that I'm talking about is called Hissin' and Kissin'. It's without the G. So it's HISSIN and KISSIN. And it's a for adult audience podcast because there's cussing and stuff in it. So, FYI for anyone who's listening.
When you say cussing, is that with a G
without a G?
Or without a G?
That's without a G. That's without a G. It's all without G's.
I just wanted to make sure we're saying error correct here.
Yeah, I do want to plug them because they released a podcast episode back in November of last year, and it's called Amazing Minotaurs, where they talk about Minotaurs and what makes a monster a Minotaur and the history of the Minotaur. And then they go into like Minotaur in pop culture references. But if anyone is interested, Jonathan or anybody else, about learning about more Minotaur stuff, I would recommend that podcast. It was a fun one.
You know what makes me wonder about Minotaurs? Are there any Maxitars?
So I am trying furiously to look up because my Greek mythology stories, yes, that's what I thought. Okay, my Greek mythology lore is very bad, as we've said before.
I like it. The one we're going to read about, though, in the Milk and Honey has a brain, right?
So it's not called Milk and Honey. It's called Morning Glory Milking Farm.
That's a different book.
Yeah, it's Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.S. Nascosta. And it's a Minotaur love story. C.M. Nascosta has a whole series of monster romance stories. I've read several of them. They're pretty good. But she has two that I've read, Minotaur stories. The Morning Glory Milking Farm, and then Minoan Bride is a novella. And she has an interesting spin on the Greek story that she uses in her lore. But yeah, that's what you're thinking of. I think that's the book you're thinking of.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I just want to make sure milk and honey just is a phrase, an expression that means prosperity and abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Like
nothing.
the land of milk
also
and honey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like I'm not saying anything. I just
No.
make sure if I say something bad accidentally, you should be like, "Hey, that doesn't mean what I think you think it means." You should put a stop to that right away.
Got it. But yes, a Ruby Dixon Minotaur book. It'll be interesting to see how she does it because, like I said, I really like how she does the Ice Planet Barbarians. So I'm sure she'll do Minotaurs just as well. She writes good stories. So
She better do it. I just ordered it.
The Bull Moon Rising?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get into the book itself, Court of Thorns and Roses, commonly shortened as ACOTAR, by Sarah J. Maas. Why we read it? Because it's a juggernaut of the genre. Like, we needed to read it. We needed to talk about it. Ash and I needed the guys to have this as a frame of reference
You must
for some of the things that we can talk about. Yes. Or at least just have a common language for some of these things. All right, so it was published originally May 5th of 2015. I'm going to read the synopsis on it, and then we can get into more details. When 19-year-old huntress Farah kills a wolf in the woods, a terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Farah discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal, immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least, he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairy lands. An ancient, wicked shadow is growing, and Farah must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever.
It always falls to a woman, you guys.
Y'all get shit done. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
If left to our own devices, you see the state you find us in. We had, shit went sideways with Tam Tam, and we need a woman. Step in there.
So what did you guys think? Non-spoilery.
I would very much like the boys to go first, because you and I have
Me too.
thoughts and opinions, and this is not our first read, and so we have to hold it back.
I nominate Kelly.
So much.
Kelly.
I don't know. I spent most of the book wondering what the hell was going on.
Just like by yourself in a corner, like, how do I open this thing? I can't, like, if you turn, you can't open it spine side first.
I think it's more like, how did I get here in life is probably.
You just like, you had to walk with it. You had to walk.
Yes, I spent a lot of time pondering my poor life choices that have led to that moment. No, I just felt like for a lot of the book, reading the book, I had no idea what was going on with the plot. I don't know.
Did you enjoy any of it?
I just was like, finally by the end, it started making sense and started actually going somewhere. I had a lot of trouble getting into it.
Are we rating on this
like
one?
An overall? You got a collective overall for this one, Kelly?
Probably like a 3. I felt it was okay. It wasn't, or if the first 2/3 of the book had been written as well as like the last third of the book, as far as advancing the plot and making sense, I would have rated it higher. And I get that there was effort by the author to try and make you feel more like the character, where there wasn't like tons of exposition dropped on you so you knew what was going on, so that you were just in the dark as the main female character was about what was going on. And that's great, except if it confuses your reader, then it becomes a problem.
Fair.
So it sounds like a 2.
He said a 3. He
He's a 3.
He gave himself a 3.
Yeah.
He gave it a 3.
I'm sorry.
Don't put words in his mouth.
Jonathan, you're up. Tell me more.
Tell you more, huh? Okay. So I thought the story started off real strong. I thought it was going like, this is good. Let's click this into gear. I like where this is going.
You liked the killing straight out the gate.
We're not talking about stuff yet. I got a lot of questions. Right?
Okay.
And then I was like, this thing shifted, and I feel like had I had like markers where like just like some sort of indicator, like marker, not like an actual like Crayola, but like an indicator of what parts of the book when the action stopped and then when it would restart, you could just skip that whole. You could skip a whole bunch and not lose any of the story, and just pick back up. Like, and that's so it was like it went to meh to yeah.
It was high and then it was low.
Yeah.
And then it was high.
Yeah.
But the low lasted. So it was like
The
high
low-
and then it was low and then it was like
it stayed
flat.
low. Stayed low for
It was
and you're like any moment now.
like a
But
mountain.
Like a
one
watch
might
pot
say.
doesn't boil.
Like a
kind of
mountain range.
Like, no, not even like a mountain range. It was like a flat bottom U, like one of those block letter stencil U's. It was like down, very steep, up and down.
What's your score?
I gave it a 4.
You gave it a 4?
Yeah, I gave it a 4. I felt like even though, I mean, when it was up, it was very up. When it was down, it was very down. And majority of the book was down, but the ups were
Made up for it.
Yeah, I don't know if it made up for it. Also, I would add, I know we do a lot, we reference a lot of Beauty and the Beast, but I got some legitimate Beauty and the Beast vibes out of this book.
Oh yeah.
But it also, like, I have questions. I'll save.
Yet.
I know we're not there. I'm just gonna I'm gonna save those questions.
I answered your question.
No, because it's like I feel like it is Beauty and the Beast, but it
This was not my favorite book. I think Mari, specifically how long it took me to get through my first read of this.
Blasphemer.
I know if it wasn't for Mari's like push, like gentle nudging, like yep, this is by far the slowest feeling book. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. So this book was maybe a 3 for me. I can't remember the last time it took me something like 4 or 5 months to finish a book.
You know what it is? It's the sunk cost fallacy. Because let me tell these listeners that if there's a stack of this series on the shelves over here,
but not like multiple.
You're invested in this. No, you're not as invested.
Now,
you're not as invested in this series as you are into
the cult of Sarah J. Maas.
Are there other Sarah J. Maas books?
So
is that whole shelf
series. Yeah, that whole shelf is her.
Oh, holy shit!
He's looking at my shelf.
Sarah J. Maas's children are going to Ivy League schools based on this shelf.
Child, I think she's just got one child, but yes.
Oh wow.
So this book was not my favorite for all the reasons actually that Jonathan said. I understood what was happening. I just didn't care. There was too much fluff in the center for me. I was not interested literally until the last third to a quarter of the book.
That's enough slices.
It was enough slices for me. And it kills me because Jonathan is very on board with the characters as we know them now.
Oh yeah.
And I desperately need him to read book 2.
No, I don't. I think
he bought a wig, you guys.
I got a wig.
He bought a Tamlin wig. And I'm stuffing it down.
And Mari, you've seen The Crown, right? And the Maas.
I'm dying over here.
Are you okay, Mari?
No, we're killing her.
Out with the bad air, in with the good air. I've seen CPR on Looney Tunes my entire life.
Listeners, all of this said, this is not going to be your favorite book. There is spice, there is story, there is depth. It was too much depth for me.
The flat part was very deep. It was like the Mariana Trench.
Yeah, it was down there. Yeah. But the end made it worth it for me. I enjoyed where the story ended and how it's progressed since then. So it's a 3 for me. I would read it again.
And Chip is a real boy again.
Okay. So we basically have done this speaking order in the order of least knowledge and association with it to the most. Because like Kelly hadn't read any of it.
Serendipitously.
Yeah. Kelly hadn't read any of it. This was his first reading. Jonathan, I think you had tried and stopped several times, and this is your first reading all the way through. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ash, I know you've read some of the entire series, but not all of the series, right?
I'm about halfway through ACOTAR, yeah.
Okay.
Like the series itself, yeah.
Yeah, and I've read the entire series. So I read ACOTAR for the first time August of last year. And then, so this is my reread. And let me tell you a little story. I have also been trying to read Crescent City, which is her other, she's got Sarah J. Maas's 3 series, ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, and Crescent City. I have been trying to read the first Crescent City book, for 9.5 months.
A whole baby.
Yes, a whole child.
A whole gestation period.
Yes, whole person. And the similarities, like that book is so slow and there's so much. And then at the end, it finally comes together and you're like, oh, pull on my heartstrings. So I'm just going to say I think this is just what Sarah J. Maas does. She tends to twist and or rip your heart out or get her hooks into you or something in the very last part of her books. I will say that I really, really enjoyed the ACOTAR series as a whole. I've enjoyed it. ACOTAR itself, the ACOTAR book 1, is the weakest of the link, which is what I tell everyone. I feel like it is absolutely worth it in order to enjoy the rest of the series, which I very much enjoyed, and I would recommend to anyone who listens to this podcast. I will say that going back, rereading it now and going back, thinking back to when I read it the first time, I remember reading it because I was like, what is everyone talking about? This book, I guess I'm going to read it.
Yeah, there's no hype.
Yeah, everyone talks about ACOTAR. I guess I'm going to read it, whatever. And I had the hardest time getting through it. I was just like, what is everyone talking about? What are they smoking? Like, am I even reading the right book? It was so, like, you get to that middle of the book, it is so slow. It is so sluggish. It's like you're in some sort of a hallucination dream or something. It's very, very slow. Once you've read the series, you know that there's a lot that happens that has to happen that way. And it's laying down groundwork for things in the rest of the books. But we're not rating the series. We're rating the first book. So I feel very similar to how I did in that it was very slow, very hard to get through. And then the end very much pulled it together for me and was like, ooh, all of it just came together very well. And since I really like the series a lot, and I see how this book had to be the way it had to be, the way it was, in order for the series to be what it is. This is the base. And if this book were different, I don't think the series could be what it is. I'm going to have to give it a 4, bordering on 4.5, because I see what it is as a whole. And I don't know how to see it any other way. All right, Kelly, the spoiler spiel.
Okay, dear listeners, from this point forward, we will be discussing spoilers, so consider yourself warned.
Do we want to say anything else in the overall stuff, about spoilers before we go into fantasy? Jonathan, you were
overall question, Jonathan, or are they specific?
Oh, it just feels like it's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, it says it.
Yeah,
on the back of the
but
book.
Manipulative. I didn't read the book with my eyeballs. Ashley, I can't. How do you turn the audio around? The left goes in the right ear.
In the synopsis.
Yeah, I didn't.
It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Yeah, absolutely.
It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling
so
officially.
I'm picking up that track. I feel validated. It feels dark though, like manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my biggest question is: did Tam Tam use her?
You'd have to continue reading.
I'm not going to continue reading.
That's not what you told me yesterday. We would have went through this.
I don't want to continue reading the series. I like to think of my Tam Tam as very sexy and loving.
Well, then it sounds like you don't want us to answer that question. I don't know if that's a podcast question.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. In order to answer that question, we'd have to relay information that goes beyond this book.
Well beyond this book.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that offline if you'd like.
No.
I
want to preserve my thought process on Tamlin.
You're going to end it on a happy note?
I'm happy with Tam Tam right now.
Okay.
Jonathan, you will like the other books. If I can tell you, from what I know about you, and I mean, your wife is telling you she knows a heck of a lot more than I do about you. But from what I know about you, you will like the rest of the books.
Like how you were very honest with your first iteration. She knows a heck of a lot more than you do. Trust your wife.
I mean,
you're alive
also
because
facts.
of her.
Kelly, do you plan to read the rest?
I don't know.
I mean, I think reading the rest has to do with the individual, but also like where we want to go with the podcast, right? Because we could spend episodes talking. I think for me,
where's the peer pressure for Kelly? Kelly, you got to read this. Apparently, We're missing out,
Well,
Kelly.
because you liked it more.
I mean, yeah, Kelly and I liked the same parts of the book. He was just 1 star off. That's all. We're to peer pressure him. Kelly, I think you should read this whole series.
The biggest problem I had with this book, aside from it being confusing and feeling like it was somewhat disjointed at the beginning, was that you had the very typical, the girl dies, whatever, girl has the main character has the male, whatever person fall in love with them. And what happens? Oh, he turns her into a fae. Oh, he turns her into a vampire as well. Oh, he turns her into a queen. It's
not exactly what
that.
happened.
That's what happened. That's
Yes, that exactly
But it's
what
not
happened.
his,
He turned her
it's
into a
not
fae.
his love for her. Like, he didn't turn her into
No, but that's
a
how it
fae.
ended. He recruited
It's
her.
not his love for her that recruited the others to do it.
She's not even high fae.
Yes,
She's just
she is.
regulation fae.
No, she's high fae. At the
Is
end,
she?
she says that. She says it at the end. I've been turned into a high fae. I just read it 30 minutes before we finished. Before we started this podcast. I just finished listening to it.
I'm going to
the
take it
first
on
time I
faith.
read it, and then this time going through, I listened to the dramatized version.
I agree with Mari, because so I had said that to Ashley this afternoon. I said, "Hey, is she high fae now?" And Ashley was
I thought it was no.
I thought I had heard the same thing that Mari's saying, is that she was high fae, that she's high fae.
I thought it was no, but I might have.
I tell you what, I didn't quite grasp the turning into fae. But no, Kelly's right. Like, yeah, it's like the end is near. How do we keep her Turner?
Well, she died. She died
Let her
for
die.
them.
Go ahead, Kelly. Tell us more.
I enjoyed the whole thing of her doing the trials. I mean, that was an interesting way of doing things. But it also, at the same time, it was like, how much more can she get in debt to the other guy, Lucian, and all that stuff. And then I also thought it was interesting and quite a different way to do the evil stepsisters, evil sisters kind of thing, where her sisters actually turned out to be, or made a change and turned to be better people than you thought after everything that happened. So that was a nice change from the usual, evil sibling thing that happens in most fantasy stories.
I mean, they're still assholes, but I hear what you're saying.
I didn't think they were assholes.
They're
I think
assholes.
one was just a different upbringings, different childhoods.
No. When I first read this book, I was like, oh my God, this is, I was like, I know it says it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but this feels like a bad Cinderella retelling. Like, these are the horrible sisters, and she's, the main character is the only one that ever does anything for anybody else. And I was just like, this is so heavy-handed. So I do I do think that there was definitely more flesh added to the characterizations of the sisters in that middle part, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Like, as soon as the evil lady gave the riddle, like, it was obvious what the answer was.
Yes.
Like, I mean, she should have immediately said it as soon as she got the riddle out of her mouth.
I mean, she wasn't particularly educated.
Here's my thing,
I didn't think it was that obvious. I had to write it all down.
I figured it out, but here's the thing. Again, I thought it was easy, but like, Farah had education up to 8 years old. At 8 years old, she stopped all education and was in a subsistence living. Like, she learned how to hunt. She taught herself how to hunt. She taught herself how to do arrows. She taught herself how to skin things. And like that, think of how young in development an 8-year-old is, and how the brain is like still forming. And that's when she last learned. Like, she's illiterate. She has this vague knowledge of this high life that they had when they were wealthier, but she basically didn't have a childhood. She went into like having to take care of everybody mode at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And lacking the answer to the riddle for the majority of her life, right? Like,
yes. Oh my God, yes.
There wasn't exposure or experience to that. There weren't books that she read or TV that she watched from even from afar. So, I mean,
other than her saying she was hooking up with that boy in the village and she knew it wasn't love.
Right.
So,
it's easy to know
know what love is.
It's easy to know what something's not, and to have experienced what it is. It's easy to know when one is being used, and particularly when you're using them.
So, Farah does all this stuff because she promised her dying mother, her dying mother made her promise that she would like take care of her family. Okay, number one, Feyre is the youngest. Why would she ask her youngest child to take care of everybody? That was like something that always bothered me the first time I read it. But now reading it through, I sit there and I wonder if Feyre's mom didn't actually mean that literally. She's just like, how you tell a little kid, oh, take care of your dad, take care of your sibling. You don't really mean for them to be like, you are now the caretaker of this person for the rest of your life. This is an oath.
Well,
do you
to
think,
a small child, it would be literal.
Right.
You know what
do
I
you
mean?
think the mom meant it literally, or do you think Feyre just took it that way because she was so young?
Did you have a theory on this, husband?
I think the mom must have meant it because obviously it was the right choice.
Obviously, yes. Oh my God, you're right, Kelly.
I feel like Feyre's mother was probably Fey related, and there was some sort of, whether it was some sort of power or theme, she was able to tell that her children were different and what each child was capable of, and a result, I guess. So, and the trouble I have here, and this is all speculative, I don't have any foundation for these things except to say that, hey, I'm just guessing. Except for like the older sister, the glamoring didn't really work on her. So it tells me like there's some gene in this family that's kind of bucking that stuff. And so I think that mom was like, hey, listen, these other two are they're blown up, but you still have a chance. I can see in the future that you're going to be the one who has to do this, and then ask her. So I think
so
it
you
was
think she
intentional.
meant it literally?
Yeah.
I didn't find that important at all.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It just made me think about it this time.
I don't know. I have 2 siblings, and I'm pretty sure by the time I was 8 years old, my parents knew I was going to be the most responsible one. But I'm just saying, I think that your parents know pretty early on the type of character you're going to be.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I will say to anyone out there, and I'm going to put this as a place mark too, Ash, for after you read Throne of Glass, because I don't know if you guys are going to want to read Throne of Glass. Anyone who's read Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, there's a theory out there that is very interesting that involves Feyre's mother. Message us, and I will tell you, because I think it's got some potential to it. And Ash, here's a reminder too. So like once you read Throne of Glass,
Correct.
be like, Mari, what was that ACOTAR tie-in?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of speculation that these 3 series are intertwined in some way, and in a almost like a Marvel multiverse kind of way.
With just talking about the first book. Even like the first 2 books would help. But yeah, it's a really good series. Okay, so fantasy. What are we giving it for world building, fantasy, etc.?
It set up an interesting fantasy world with the whole idea of the Fae kingdoms being divided into these different groups. But then, of course, we throw in, there's this other kingdom that's, much more powerful. So I don't think it was terrible. It's a lot of what tends to happen when I read books that have Fae in it, whether it's romantasy or not, is that there are no rules for the Fae. It's just kind of a, author does whatever they want for the Fae. So if they decide that this Fae character is more powerful or can do this, then that Fae character can do that. It's always very whatever, and that's fine, but it also makes it annoying, this Fae is more powerful than any creature combined, but somehow somebody managed to trick him. But if he just says this one phrase, then he'll be more powerful than any of the others Fae and can kill everyone. So I would say I have to give the fantasy element of this just a 3.
Okay. Jonathan, you're next.
Ooh, fantasy. Are we okay? So fantasy. So the idea that there's this dichotomy of lands separated by a wall and some like ancient treaty, and there's definitely a disparity between how the 2 groups of nations kind of live and what they value, and so you have one society that's very everything means something to them. Like if you got like a block of wood, it's worth something to you. Where the other one is like built in abundance, but is missing some of those, or struggling to maintain or regain some of the more meaningful things, like, I don't know, their face. Like I felt that was a very interesting way to build it. I also feel like there's a plethora of creatures that I don't know anything about, but it definitely sent off vibes. Like I'd like to see some photos, some pictures or images of
They exist.
Yes, they do.
of these creatures. Also, language. I feel like maybe there's language that I would like to see their homes. Also, really dug whatever like nighttime festival they were having, the holiday Fuckfest. I'm assuming that's what it was.
The spring rites, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bringing spring on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give it a 4 for fantasy. We're standing fantasy point zone.
These boys are killing me, Mari.
I know.
I almost hate that this is book 1, because I really do think it just gets so much better. The fantasy in this book for me is a 4. I think there's so much building, although it's limited, right? Because we predominantly only see the spring court in this book, and it just gets so much better. So I know that the rest of it's a 5. But if I'm looking at just this, because it's just spring court, it's, the one festival, like you said, and then we're, bam, under the mountain, I would say it's a 4. You see some magic, you see repercussions of magic, right? The control of it, Amarantha's hold on the world and how it's affecting others, high fae, low fae, and humans alike. I really enjoyed, reaching out into those other creatures. The surreal, are you kidding me?
Oh,
I want to be besties with that guy, right? Like we all want the surreal Tico shirts. And I enjoyed the fantasy part of this book probably the most, better than the romance, better than the spice.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it was new, but because it was well done. Even as difficult as it was to get through that valley part of the book, I really did enjoy the fantasy. It's a 4 for me.
Yeah, for me, fantasy in this book is a 5. I think that there's a fairy world being built, a whole world comparison to the humans. There's a history between the humans and the fairy. The humans were slaves, and then they rose up, and then like some of the fae were fighting with the humans against the other fae. So you have this whole lush history built up. You have all these courts with their own ways of being, their own politics, their own magic. You have this in this first book, this really interesting curse of the masks. Like, I don't know that I'd read that before in a book, that your whole court is cursed to wear a mask. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I fucking love the surreal. Like, if I had been able to squeeze in one more costume for DragonCon this year, I was going to be the surreal for the Sarah J. Maas cosplay photo shoot. It was going to be surreal. But that ending where she goes under the mountain to save those that she loves. I mean,
this tiny human
in the, land of the Fae that's out to kill her, goes to the most dangerous part that she knows of this land, under the fucking mountain, to save those that she loves. And she has to go through these epic tests. She has to endure this ordeal. I mean, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So that words. That finishes fantasy. Romance. What do we think about the romance?
I mean, obviously, since it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, you're going to have the Stockholm Syndrome at play. So, I don't know. I liked that she was a lot like Belle in Beauty and the Beast. She pushed back a lot against him, which is nice. You could see some of the romance trying to build up, but there was also a lot of, play into he's a bad boy. She keeps getting warned about, don't go out there while he's in this state, because it won't be the one you know of. He'll just do whatever. He's a bad boy. There's a lot of that vibe to it, and that's just really not my jam. Like, I feel like we've read worse, we've read better. So I don't think I can really give it more than a 3.
Fair,
Jonathan?
fair.
For romance, I'm going to give it a 2. It was just the romance started to maybe happen a tiny little bit in the very flat spot of this book, and so it just wasn't enough of it for me to give it an overwhelmingly high review. I feel like there was
It's a 3 for me for reasons that I can't fully acknowledge on this podcast. You see some of the foundation. I don't disagree with Kelly's interpretation of it, but I don't think everyone would see it that way in book 1. I do think the feelings that she's feeling now are genuine. And I think you can love someone without being in love with someone.
yeah, like a sister.
No, a partner. So for me, it's a 3.
I think for me, also similarly tiptoeing like Ash,
Mm-hmm.
I think that Farah has an immense amount of love and passion for those that she cares about. Like, she is always about giving of herself and giving herself and sacrificing herself for those she cares about. She did it for her family over and over. You know, she did it for Tamlin and Lucian. She did it for all the humans who didn't even know she was doing it for them. Definitely these romantic ideals of a sacrifice for those that you love. She's got a lot of that. Because of things that Ash and I know, I would say that I agree with Kelly, and I also feel that there's some very nuanced and layered romance in this book. And so for me, it's a 4. And I would love to have a discussion with anyone who's read beyond this book, and we can talk about it more. But that's as
Fair
deep
enough.
as I can go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem here is when you read a book that's a part of a series, it's hard to go back and talk about just that one book if you've read the rest of them. It's like trying to talk about Star Wars A New Hope if you've seen all of them. You can't just talk about the one movie by itself, right? So your knowledge of the rest of the series sort of taints how you interpret and look back on that first book.
When I read this the first time, I wasn't terribly impressed with the romance aspect of it. So on that note, yeah, Kelly, Spice.
It was far tamer than other books we've read.
Yes.
For sure. Now, as far as like how the quality of it was, I mean, I think the quality of it was pretty good. I think that it wasn't like grotesque or over the top, ridiculous amounts of spice, nor did I think it was, too much by any means. So I think it was fine. Like, I think the spice was, well, if anything, I thought there was going to, I thought there was going to be a lot more. So, but it was not near as much as what people have made it out to be. It's kind of like, if you've never read anything spicy, you would say that this was a smutty book. As far as the spice goes, I guess I would probably, stick with saying it's like a 3 or a 3.5. I mean, it was fine. There was a, moderate amount, and it was fairly well put in there. So I don't think there was any real, negative thing about it.
Jonathan?
Spice. So I really didn't have a whole bunch of spice for this book at all. Even when spice was happening, spice wasn't really spice. It was like
Mediocre
salt
spice.
and paprika. I would say though, like the only thing I would add is there's probably a reason that this book took 8 years to catch on. Because that's how long it took most people to get through the flat spots.
Burn.
But Wicked Sick Burn. No, it's not Cajun. I'm gonna give it a 2.5. I think that's generous. I want to give it a 2, but I feel like a 2.5 is probably because there's like some retractable claws. That's all I'm saying. That's where I'm at. No banging either.
God, you guys are killing me. I would say it's a 3. I agree with the boys. It was underwhelming. There is hype to the book. It's a spicy series. This is not a spicy book. It was polite. It was foundational. I think even with knowing what we know in book 1, even like at some point Jonathan was like, I think I forget what question I asked, but I asked it back to him. I was like, do you think that he loved her? and he paused, and it was a very long pause, right? So I think the boys are pretty on par. I think it was a 3 for me. What was there was nice. It wasn't anything life-changing, which you will see in later books, boys.
Not me.
Oh, yes.
It was good enough. It's a 3 for me.
For me, and I am trying really hard to remember back, and I think this is how I felt about it the first time I read it. I didn't know any of the spoilers going into the series, but I did have this preconceived notion that this was going to be a spicy or smutty book, because everyone talked about it as that's the Fae smut series. With the preconceived notion that this was going to be a spicy book, and then getting what we got, I remember being like, where's the spice? Did the spice fall out of my book? What's going on here? Like looking under the pages, like, where is it? Going with my preconceived notions that it was going to be a smutty book. Spoiler, it is not. And going with the fact that I don't connect to Tamlin. Didn't jive for me. And I have enjoyed books before where the main romance situation doesn't jive for me, and I still enjoy the book. So there are plenty of things about this that I enjoy, but yeah. So for me, the spice was a 2. Going on the covers, I know there's 2 versions of the covers. There's the original ones, and then there's the ones that we all know now. The original covers were done by Adrian Dadish, and they're more like what you would think of a traditional fantasy cover. The ones that we see now, if you go to a bookstore and try and get an ACOTAR book, it's the color blocked versions. That was done by Happy Pets Inc. I will not say what I'm going to say because it's not my turn. Kelly.
I've only looked at the one cover, and it was the cover that's on the Kindle version. I mean, I think it was fine. It's not like it was, a groundbreaking cover by any means. I don't know that it would have made me pick it up off the shelf. I feel like it's just an average cover. So I guess maybe a 3.
Jonathan?
So I'm going off of the color blocked versions, which I would have picked that book up for the color block version alone. I just like a couple of things that will make me pick. If you're an author out there and you're like, what's going to get Jonathan to buy my book? I'll tell you right now, geometric shapes and color blocking. If you can give me a good solid color,
that's what does it for you.
That's what does it for me.
Interesting.
So I'm going to give the book cover a 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
High praise. I like the original covers far more than the now covers. I know they are coveted. Like, you can't find them unless you're just the lucky person in the Goodwill store. I think the color blocking, I think it's interesting. I mean, how often do you see like just a solid ass red book, right? And so for that, I probably would have picked it up. Is it the most relevant to the story? Is it the most beautiful cover I've ever seen? I feel like that both are a no for me. I think it's a 3. It's how I feel about the spice. It was okay. It was there. It was played. I'm not mad at it.
I hate these covers. I hate these covers with a passion. I think that they're bright and joyful, and they're not reflective of the story, in my opinion, at all.
And they're not cohesive.
They're not cohesive. Like, you put them on the shelf and it's like a post-Halloween frenzied kid just threw up on your bookshelf.
I was going to say, I get like rainbow vomit.
Oh, yes. As much as I love this series, I put off buying this series until I found really good slipcovers. And you guys will see in the picture that you have already seen if you're listening to this, the picture that I used for the social media stuff for this episode, it's my version of ACOTAR, and they're all beautiful, dark slipcovers that I have on them. It's a 1. It's a 1. I hate them. Loathe them.
I think I was being polite. I don't loathe them, but I don't love them. And I only bought them because you gave me like the first 2 books. Like,
I got you hooked. Am I your dealer?
Yeah,
I'm your dealer, aren't I?
9 times out of 10, that's a yes.
Yo, you got any more of that romantasy over there? You got any more of that Sarah J. Maas?
Yeah. What you got next? They look getting a little itchy.
Do we think it's a kissing book?
Yeah. Sorry, wasn't my turn.
Yeah, now you got to go to Kelly first.
Fine.
Yeah, it's a kissing book.
Yeah.
I popped this thing through the calculator.
Oh, God.
It popped out a 39% success rate. Am I reading smut? It's mildly dirty.
We've expanded.
I've expanded. There's been some expansion to the calculator over the past few weeks. It's growing. It's a grower, not a shower, Ashley. She's shaking her head at me. Okay, is it a kissing book? No. It didn't even hit 51%. I could be on the fence.
Is it my turn again?
It's
Yeah,
your
it's a
turn again.
kissing book because ultimately, if Feyre hadn't been wrapped into this whole situation, everything would have gone to shit. Everything would have gone to shit. She wouldn't have known that there was a problem into the capacity that it was. She wouldn't have gone under the mountain. Amarantha would have continued her control over Perythia. Everything would have just catastrophically combusted.
How much kissing was there?
It's a kissing book.
I need more kissing.
No. It's a kissing book.
Kisses, not
it's
kiss.
A kissing book in that
didn't even say the word cock.
If Feyre was removed from the story,
okay, I'm not. Hey, you can.
The world would not have been saved for the time being.
I agree with Ash.
We know more than you do.
Yeah,
but just for this book, if Feyre hadn't been Beauty and the Beast, right, then there wouldn't have been progression and the takedown of Amarantha, and that is key to this book.
Absolutely, I agree. It's a romantasy book. If Feyre had not been willing to die for love, die for those that she loved, it would have been a totally different story. She wouldn't have gone under the mountain. Feyre went under the mountain for love. Feyre killed for love. Feyre died for love. Yeah, absolutely. Romantasy.
We have spoken.
Yes.
Mark it in the archives.
Anything else about the book? Anybody else wants to say? I will say that everyone should seriously think about giving this.
I have a point. No.
Book.
I have a point. Yeah.
She's got her hand. Just so you know, Mari, she's got her hand in the air.
I've got my niece's hand up.
In case you didn't see it, Mari, it's there.
No. I have a point, and this is a question for Jonathan. Jonathan, the question that I asked you was, how did you know that she was in love? And what do you remember the answer that you gave me? You said it was one line. Yeah. She gave one line.
Just one line.
Mari, you're going to appreciate this if he remembers.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember.
Do you remember?
Oh my God. I can't remember, but it's something, I'm sure it was something important to remember.
Yeah.
But it was like sensitive.
It's going to be really relevant to the questions that you're going to have for us offline. His answer to me was because she told Rhysand that she knew she loved Tamlin because Tamlin didn't hold her captive. She was never his captive.
That's what it is. It's not because she didn't hold him captive. It's because she said he never treated me like a captive.
Hold on to that feeling.
Holding on to it. Tam was like, what do you want? You want paint?
Hold on to it.
You want paint? Here's some paint.
Wrap it up, Mari.
Canvas out.
I made my point. Wrap it up.
Okay. I will say that I highly encourage anyone to read the sequel, at least, and give that a shot before you have a full opinion of the series. And I would say that if anyone is thinking about it, even if you're not a big audiobook person, the dramatized version on Audible, which is why I ended up reading of this, not just the audiobook, the dramatized version that had the multiple voices and the sound effects, very well done. That's what I listened to, and I very much enjoyed it. Thanks to listening to Of Swords and Soulmates. Before we go, make sure to check out the show notes, rate, review, and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. It helps others to find us. Follow us on Instagram at Of Swords and Soulmates, or join our Facebook page, Of Swords and Soulmates, or check out our website, ofswordsandsoulmates.com. We're also available on YouTube and TikTok with the same username. If you'd like to offer a suggestion for a future rapid fire question, reach out to us on anything we've talked about, anything you agree with, anything you disagree with, etc. You may reach out to us on the options I've already said. And if you'd like to read along with us as we prepare for a new episode, you can follow us on Goodreads at Of Swords and Soulmates. We hope you'll join us in 2 weeks for our next episode when we read and review A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Bye!